Welcome to Clinch Your Legacy, Strategies for Achieving the Legacy Distinguished Toastmaster Award. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my relationship to the DTM Award. My name is Aubrey Carrier, and I joined Toastmasters in 2011. I currently belong to 3 clubs: Stagecoach Speakers 525 Market, which is a Wells Fargo company club; Evening Stars, which is a downtown advanced club in San Francisco; and Point of Order, which is a specialty club where we study Robert's Rules of Order. So please check with me if you're interested in learning more about those topics. But back to 2011, when I first joined and was first getting into Toastmasters and the educational program. I saw those requirements to achieve DTM, and I thought, no way am I ever going to do all that work. It's too hard. It's too much work, not me. But to my surprise, I was encouraged by many mentors and fellow members of my club who encouraged me to take on leadership roles, to progress through that educational program. And before I knew it, I realized I was within grasp of achieving that Distinguished Toastmaster Award, which I eventually did in 2016. And since then, I've been inspired to help other people reach that goal, because I think that a lot of people get very far down the path and they don't realize that they're so close to it. And that's one of the reasons why I am hosting this webinar tonight. So I see that Robin was having some trouble, so I'm just going to type in, if you cannot hear, please click the phone icon to start audio. And hopefully that will solve the problem. Okay, quick overview and objectives of our session tonight. Our goal tonight is to review why we're all here, go over the legacy DTM requirements, get you to think about what your status is, where you are on that path, and think about your options, manage your time to find out how you're going to finish the projects you need to complete, and then get some ideas for resources and help for you to finish those projects. So if you are on this call, you probably already know that the Legacy Educational Program, which are the Competent Communicator, Competent Leader, etc. manuals that we've used for the past several years, will be phased out at the end of this Toastmaster year in June 2020. And the Pathways curriculum, which we've had in District 4 for the past 2 years, will be the only program going forward as of July. So our objective this session is to review options for Toastmasters who have made significant progress in that legacy educational program, and specifically those who intend to complete the Distinguished Toastmaster Award before June 30th, 2020. So before we go any further, I have an important disclaimer to make. The true benefit of Toastmasters is not about getting awards, in my opinion. The true benefit of Toastmasters is developing your own skills, gaining experience, confidence, networking, former relationships, connecting with communities, and many other benefits that are difficult to quantify. One of my early Toastmasters mentors, who was the woman in my home club, who was the first person in our club to achieve the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, she told us, I didn't join Toastmasters to become a DTM. I joined to become a better communicator and leader. And it was in the process of developing those skills that I happened to achieve the requirements I needed to become a Distinguished Toastmaster. So please keep that in mind, and remember that awards and credentials are not the be-all and end-all. That said, awards are one way that we recognize achievement. So if you have made significant progress in the legacy educational tracks, it is worth taking the time to assess your progress and figure out what you can get done before the end of the legacy program coming up, again, June 30th, 2020. I want everyone to feel empowered to take charge of their own development experience and aim for the stars. So here's our current situation. Again, hopefully not news to you if you are on this webinar, but after June 30th, 2020, no one will be able to submit any legacy educational awards with Toastmasters. That program will be no longer available. A quick review of the differences between the Legacy program and Pathways. Under the Legacy program, there were two separate educational tracks, communication and leadership. But in Pathways, the levels are designed to include both communication and leadership elements. And for that reason, the Legacy awards, such as Competent Communicator, Advanced Leader Bronze, etc., cannot be credited towards Pathways awards. Let's take a look at the Legacy requirements. The communication track has 4 levels. There's competency, bronze, silver, and gold. It's primarily speech projects. The leadership track has 3 levels, competency, bronze, and silver, and involves multiple leadership roles at the club and district level. And it's required to complete both these communication and leadership tracks in order to achieve Distinguished Toastmaster Award. Take a quick look at the Pathways DTM requirements. They may look a lot simpler than Legacy, but it's roughly the same amount of work because a lot of those speech projects and leadership projects are rolled into those 2 learning paths that are the foundation of the Pathways DTM. So it's roughly the same amount of time and work going into it. Let's take a closer look at those Legacy requirements. And as we do, think about what you have already accomplished and assess what you still need to do. If you have already completed your Advanced Leader Silver Award, or you're in the process of finishing that up, but you still have some communication track tasks to complete, keep in mind the Advanced Communicator track is primarily speeches, plus a little bit of one-on-one coaching with a new member. It is in your best interest to look at your calendar and schedule these remaining projects because your Advanced Leader Silver will not transfer to the Pathways curriculum. That means if you do not complete your DTM before June 30th, 2020, and you already submitted your ALS, you would be starting from scratch with all of your leadership requirements, which includes that full year of district leadership, coaching, mentoring, or club sponsorship, and high-performance leadership. And those elements alone represent a lot of work, and in many cases, multiple years of commitment to Toastmasters. So relatively speaking, you have plenty of time to finish your remaining advanced communication speech projects. Please do not hesitate, because if you start now, again, you will have time to do it. So please schedule those speeches, find a new member to coach if you need to complete that requirement. If you need help finding speaking opportunities, there are many clubs in the district that would love to have an experienced guest speaker visit them. So please contact Legacy COE at d4tm.org, and I'll have all the contact information at the end of the presentation, and we can brainstorm some options with you. So that's if you have mainly completed Advanced Leader Silver and you have primarily Advanced Communicator projects left. I'm going to pause here and open up. If there are any questions, please type in the chat box. The question came in, what's the best way to find out where I am? So the best way to find out where you are personally is to log into Toastmasters and look at your personal record, and you'll be able to see all of the awards that you have earned so far in Toastmasters. So that'll help locate you in the legacy communication track, and check in with your club. Find out if your club has records. Do you have manuals that you kept that you filled out? Have you kept records of your own progress? Does your Vice President of Education have status of where you are? So I would start by looking at Toastmasters International's record for you, and then check in with your club to find out what club records there may be for you. Question from Amric, what is the DTM project for Pathways? I have to admit I have not done one, so I cannot give a detailed response for that one, but it is essentially a capstone project where you will be selecting a goal and working towards that and being able to report on that. So I'm not going to speak too much of that since this session is focused on legacy awards, but I can point you to resources where you can find out more about the Pathways DTM project. The third question, why am I talking about ACS in particular? Well, I'm going to talk about Advanced Leader Silver in just a minute, but for ACS, if people have completed everything else but not ACS, then it really is in their best interests to finish those speeches as soon as they can and then get that Distinguished Toastmaster Award submitted. Okay, I'm going to move on to talk about Advanced Leader Silver. So if you have not completed your Advanced Leader Silver, let's take a look at those requirements. You have a choice to make, and now is the time to make it. Please look at these requirements in detail. I will share these links after the presentation so you can look at them in more detail if you need to, and you can also find them at d4tm.org. I'll have links at the end of the presentation. So please review these requirements and figure out what you need to do, and be realistic about the time frame to get it done among your job activities, your other life activities, your family activities. And there's a comment that unless you have completed ACS, there are too many speeches or projects to complete by June 30th, 2020. The requirements for, right, it does depend on your motivation. So the requirements for ALS are quite time-consuming. They are big time commitments. So let's take a look at closer look at those. District Officer Service, High Performance Leadership Project, and coaching or mentoring or sponsoring a club. These are serious time commitments. If you do not have these elements already completed or currently in progress, it will be very challenging to achieve Legacy DTM before that June 30th deadline. So we'll take a closer look at these requirements. District leadership, full year of district leadership service, which would be an area director, division director, finance manager, administration manager, etc., from July to June. So if this is something you have not done yet, you may be looking at the calendar and thinking, well, that's a 12-month commitment, the deadline's in June, and right now it is October. So you're right. For this year, the District Leadership Shuttle has already blasted off. But you may notice I put an asterisk on this slide because this year, Toastmasters International is offering a limited time opportunity. A member can earn the equivalent of 12 months district officer service by successfully coaching a club. And while there are many different ways that we can define success, Toastmasters International considers a club coach to be successful if that club achieves distinguished status or better by the end of the year. So you can coach as a substitute, but it's a gamble. You will only get the Advanced Leader Silver credit if the club achieves distinguished status or better by our favorite deadline, June 30th, 2020. If you do go the club coach route, please keep in mind it is not a guarantee. Other components of Advanced Leader Silver. Pick one of three: coaching, mentoring, or sponsoring. Club coach again. So if you happen to need both one of these requirements and the district leadership credit, you could actually get 2 for 1 this year by successfully coaching a club. But again, the club must reach distinguished status or better by June 30th in order for you to get that credit. With sponsorship, you are helping to form a club from scratch. You identify a population that could benefit from having a Toastmasters club, work with them to build up interest and set up a kickoff meeting and help lead them through that chartering process. There's also a metric to hit here. You will only get the leadership credit if the club charters by June 30th, 2020, which you'll be hearing this deadline over and over again in this presentation. And that means they have submitted all their payments and paperwork to Toastmasters International to become an official club. With mentorship, you'll work with a new club for 6 months and help them develop best practices by visiting them regularly and giving feedback to the members and officers. So keep in mind, technically, you will not be appointed mentor until after the club charters. And you don't get mentor credit as soon as you're appointed mentor. You only get the credit after 6 months of working with a chartered club. So let's do the math. If you start mentoring a new group in January and they don't charter until March, you're not eligible for leadership credit until September. The good news right now is we currently have a lot of young clubs in need of mentors. So if this is a requirement that you need, please get in touch with me and I'll connect you with our club growth team to discuss some options. High Performance Leadership Project, another component of the Advanced Leader Silver Award. With this project, you will be leading a team to achieve a shared goal. This does involve pre-work and devising your plan and strategy before you execute. So you'll also need to plan in that time that it will take. If you're going to be doing any of the projects I previously described, such as district officer term, club coach, club mentor, etc., I recommend making that the basis of your HPL. If you need HPL ideas, there are all kinds of projects District 4 could use help with, so please contact me, and again, we can help brainstorm and find a good project that works for you. And before I move on, I'll again open it up for questions about the Advanced Leader Silver Award. Please type into the chat box if you have a question. We'll wait a moment to see if any come in. More info on HPL. And is that you're looking for HPL ideas or how it works? Okay, so with an HPL, again, you need to choose a project that involves you leading a team, which is why being a club coach or a club mentor is a classic basis for an HPL project, because you are leading that team to achieve launching a club, to becoming distinguished, something with a set goal where you are setting a metric, and you're going to lead this team to achieve that metric. So you have your action team, and the action team are the people, the team that you are leading. And you also have a guidance team. So you'll recruit a guidance team. You'll tell them, this is the idea I have for my HPL project. They'll give you feedback. They'll give you guidance. They'll give you advice. They'll ask you questions about how you're going to work with this team to make this plan happen. And then you work with your action team to execute that plan as best as you can. You meet with your guidance committee regularly along the way. And when you are finished, whatever happens, whether you reach your goal or not, you'll give a speech and present back to your guidance committee about what you learned from this process, about yourself as a leader, how the plan went, how you would change it next time if you need to. Other non-Toastmaster examples, anything that involves you leading a team for a shared goal. So I don't want to get too far into the specifics of HPL in this particular session, but we can certainly follow up offline because we could do an entire session that's just about HPL. So I will definitely follow that up with anyone who is more interested about getting their HPL done. And it's great that people are excited about it. Moving on, as you are figuring out where you are along this Toastmasters journey, get organized and track your progress in a way that makes sense to you. What I ended up doing was that I typed out a list of every single task I still need to do. I printed it out and taped it up next to my computer. And every time I give one of the speeches or complete one of the leadership projects, I cross that off. And it's a very visual reminder that I see every day that keeps it top of mind and helps me track my own progress and accomplishments to see that I am moving closer and closer, and also keeps top of mind what I still need to do as I am interacting with the clubs that I belong to and others. So figure out a tracking process that works for you so you can keep track of where you are in the process. At this point, if you have not completed the leadership track and you are feeling overwhelmed by the requirements left in front of you, you may be thinking you cannot realistically meet that June 30th deadline. So if you feel that that is the situation you are in, first of all, don't panic. It's okay. We are all on our own timeline. I've already heard from people who have come to this conclusion and said, you know what, I don't want to rush. I'm not going to try to force it. I know I can't realistically fit everything in, so I'm just going to go for a Pathways DTM. So be realistic about those circumstances. If you feel you're not going to meet that deadline, do not submit your Advanced Leader Silver Award. Now going back to the Pathways DTM requirements, also requires different elements, including these four. These certain individual leadership components may be carried over and applied towards a Pathways DTM if they have not already been submitted toward an ALS. Because once again, legacy awards do not transfer to the Pathways program. So if you already submitted those experiences for your ALS award, none of that work can be applied to the Pathways curriculum. So if you are in that situation, you already submitted your ALS, figure out what you still have to do for the Advanced Communicator track and get that done. But if you have completed some, but not all, of the Advanced Leader Silver requirements, and you feel you're not going to finish the rest of them before that deadline, just hold on to them and switch over to Pathways. Let's talk about timing. We know we have this big deadline. If you have interacted at all with Toastmasters International, you may know that Toastmasters tends to get administratively backed up at certain times of the year. And that is especially true towards the end of the Toastmasters term in June, when clubs and districts and members all over the world are all trying to get all their credentials in before the deadline. Well, technically, the last opportunity you have to submit legacy awards is 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. My strong recommendation to you is please do not wait until 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. If there is any glitch or delay or question about what you submitted, that could potentially endanger your chances of getting the award submitted on time. So here's a real-life example. A member of one of my clubs just submitted her DTM a couple of weeks ago, and the Toastmasters education team had a question about one of her projects. It took about 3 emails back and forth with different people in the education team over about 3 business days to sort out the issue. So that's not something you want to run into if you are submitting everything on June 29th or even June 28th. So keep in mind that you need to get these, you want to make sure everything is submitted well in advance. So if there's any wrinkles, they can be ironed out in time. If you have not yet completed your HPL, you need to submit your completion record for that and get it processed before you can submit your Advanced Leader Silver. So make sure you're allowing time for that as you're planning out the timelines for your goals and objectives. Some of you may be working on the final elements of your Advanced Leader Silver this year, such as District Officer Term or Club Coach. If you are currently a District Officer, I think we have at least one on the line right now, that term goes right up until 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. So in years past, you would have to wait until July 1st to submit that for your DTM. But for this year, since the Legacy program is ending, you will need to submit all your education awards requests before June 30th. And after July 1st, the Toastmasters education team will verify whether you did complete all the requirements and are eligible for the award. So please keep that in mind. Do not miss that launch date. If you are planning to walk in the District 4 DTM hug line in 2020, hopefully you'll all have the chance to see one of our infamous District 4 hug lines. That's happening on May 16th, so please set your completion date even earlier. I recommend the end of April. If you don't make it in time for the conference, that's okay. There's still the next hug line will be ready for you. But please keep all these factors in mind as you are planning your timeline. If you have realized you are not going to realistically finish all your legacy requirements and you are going to defer your DTM for a future year, first of all, again, that's okay. And it's better to have that realization now and be able to move on quickly. But start planning for that now. Get really familiar with the Pathways DTM track. Figure out what requirements you need to do and develop a strategy and a timeline. If you need to finish that year of district leadership, talk to your current area or division director and get your application for next year ready to go. If you need to coach, mentor, or sponsor a club, make friends with the club growth team and get on their radar so they can help you find the club that's the best fit for you. And to learn more about Pathways, if you are going to go that route, and hopefully we will all continue on Pathways, whether we finish our legacy awards or not, because again, that June 30th is just a milestone. It's not the end of the road. But to learn more about Pathways, there is a webinar happening in a couple of weeks, hosted by our immediate Path District Director, Stephanie Chow, about navigating the deep seas of Pathways. So if you would like to hear more about that from an expert, please check out that webinar. It will also be recorded for future listening. On to resources. If you are trying to figure out what state you're in, what you still need to do, resources to be able to get done what you want to get done, I recommend starting with these resources. The District 4 website, good place for local district Toastmasters news of all kind. We have a full description of the Legacy program and what you need to do to accomplish that. We have a full description of the Pathways program and what you need to do to accomplish DTM under that program. A Pathways frequently asked questions from Toastmasters International. And you can always contact this email address, legacycoe@d4tm.org, because I want to hear about the journey that you are on, and I want to hear about your accomplishments, your goals, your dreams, and I want to see you shoot for those stars. You've heard a lot about legacy DTM requirements over the past 35 minutes or so. Let's open it up for questions. Okay, it looks like some of our attendees have worked out a plan from what they've heard tonight, and that is great. And I hope you please report back to us so we know how your plan succeeded wildly. As we're waiting for more questions, I can return to the subject of HPL, if that's helpful. I'm looking for non-Toastmaster examples. So if there's another nonprofit you're involved with that involves you working with a team, and you have, for example, a fundraising goal that you're working with, or a marketing goal, then that's certainly a potential HPL project. If you lead a team at work and you have a certain quarterly goal or other accomplishment that you are working towards, and you can name that metric and put a timeline on it, that could certainly be used as an HPL as well. I don't see any additional questions coming in. So please do follow up with the email address if you have other questions that come up or you'd like more follow-up information. But final thoughts. Toastmasters benefits go way beyond awards and credentials. So whether or not you have the letters DTM after your name, if you have done that work, if you've had those experiences, those relationships, you've built that community, that is something you will never lose. And that will show through in the skills that you've developed. So whatever path you choose, the universe is open to you. Thank you for attending the call tonight. I am going to leave the line open, but I'm now going to stop recording.